3:41 a.m. Gulf of Oman, 16 nautical miles southeast of Fujairah. A rigid hull inflatable boat cut through 4-foot swells at 38 knots. 8 CBP Marine interdiction agents in full tactical gear locked their night vision into position. Ahead of them, a 347-foot Comoros-flagged cargo vessel called the MV Arden Star sat dead in the water with its running lights off. 200 meters to port, the Coast Guard cutter USCGC Midget held position. Its 57mm deck gun was trained on the cargo vessel's bridge. The Arden Star had been tracked for 9 days, across 3 oceans. Through 2 flag changes, tonight it stopped running. The first boarding team reached the hull at 3:44 a.m. Coxswain attached the magnetic ladder. Lead agent went over the rail in 11 seconds. By 3:47 a.m., 6 agents were on the main deck. No crew in sight. The bridge was dark. The only sound was a diesel generator running somewhere below. Then the smell hit them. Cosmoline. Military-grade preservation grease used on weapon systems to prevent corrosion during long-term storage. Every agent on that boarding team recognized it instantly. The operation that followed would become the largest Iranian weapons interdiction since June 2025. It would expose a recruitment pipeline that pulled American citizens into arms, smuggling through encrypted messaging apps. And it would raise a question that months later still has no public answer. How many other ships made the same run without getting caught? The intelligence chain that led to the Arden Star began 5 months earlier, in November 2025, inside a signals processing facility at NSA Georgia, the cryptologic center at Fort Eisenhower. An analyst flagged a pattern in maritime communications traffic originating from Bandar Abbas, Iran's primary naval port on the Strait of Hormuz. The pattern was specific. Every 11 to 14 days, a burst transmission lasting 90 seconds went out on a frequency associated with IRGC Navy logistics. Each transmission contained an encoded cargo manifest and a set of GPS waypoints. The waypoints didn't correspond to any known commercial shipping lane. The analyst cross-referenced the waypoints with AIS data, the automatic identification system that tracks vessel movements globally. 5 of the 7 waypoint clusters matched locations where commercial vessels had briefly gone dark, meaning their transponders stopped broadcasting for periods ranging from 4 to 9 hours. Vessels going dark in the Gulf of Oman wasn't unusual. Smugglers had done it for decades. What was unusual was the timing. Each blackout period fell within 72 hours of an IRGC Navy burst transmission. NSA Georgia forwarded the analysis to the National Maritime Intelligence Fusion Center in Suitland, Maryland, on November 19, 2025. The Fusion Center ran the vessel identities through their database. 3 of the 5 ships had been previously flagged for sanctions evasion. 1 had been boarded by the Royal Navy in 2024, carrying petroleum products in violation of UN restrictions. The 5th vessel had no record at all. It appeared in the AIS system for the first time on October 3, 2025, registered in the Comoros under the name MV Pacific Sable. That ship would later be renamed the Arden Star. By December 2025, the Fusion Center had assembled enough pattern data to request a formal intelligence collection tasking. The request went to the Office of Naval Intelligence. ONI assigned a dedicated analyst team and opened a case file designated Mare Drift. The Arden Star Duadra is still operating under its original name, Pacific Sable at this point, was built in 2009 at a shipyard in Dalian, China. It changed ownership 6 times in 16 years. The current registered owner was a shell company called Oceanic Bridge Holdings, incorporated in the Comoros with a mailing address in Moroni that turned out to be a copy shop. Oceanic Bridge Holdings had 1 director on file, a Bahraini national named Faisal al-Rashidi, age 54. Al-Rashidi's passport showed 43 international border crossings in the previous 18 months, predominantly between Bahrain, Oman, Iran, and the UAE. ONI ran al-Rashidi through every database available to the U.S. intelligence community. He appeared once before in a 2021 CENTCOM intelligence summary as a peripheral figure in a network suspected of facilitating drone component transfers between Iran and Houthi-controlled territory in Yemen. Peripheral in 2021. Central by 2026. The Mare Drift team tracked the Pacific Sable's movements through January 2026. It made 3 port calls during this period. The first was in Chabahar, Iran, on January 7th. The ship spent 41 hours docked at Shahid Beheshti Port. Satellite imagery showed crane activity over the forward cargo hold during a 14-hour window on January 8th. 14 hours of loading. That detail would matter later. The second port call was Salalah, Oman, on January 14th. Standard refueling stop. Nothing loaded, nothing offloaded. The ship was in port for 9 hours. The third port call was in Djibouti on January 21st. The vessel stayed for 26 hours. Commercial port records showed it declared a cargo of industrial machinery. Customs inspection was waived under a fast-track processing agreement between the Port Authority and Oceanic Bridge Holdings, a fast-track agreement with a company that had existed for less than 5 months. The Djibouti Port Authority would later claim the agreement was standard for repeat commercial customers. After Djibouti, the Pacific Sable sailed north through the Red Sea, transited the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and entered the Gulf of Aden. It transmitted an updated cargo manifest to its next declared port of call, Muscat, Oman, listing its cargo as agricultural equipment and water purification components. On February 4, 2026, the Pacific Sable went dark. Its AIS transponder stopped transmitting at 1722 local time, approximately 180 nautical miles southeast of Al-Mukalla, Yemen. It stayed dark for 7 hours and 14 minutes. When the transponder came back online at 0:36 on February 5th, the ship was 47 nautical miles from its last known position, heading northeast toward the Gulf of Oman. It was no longer called the Pacific Sable. The AIS beacon now identified it as the MV Arden Star, registered in the Comoros, with a new maritime mobile service identity number. Name change at sea. A new digital identity. The same ship, the same crew, the same cargo. The Mare Drift team flagged the name change immediately. ONI elevated the case classification. If you've watched this channel before, you know these investigations don't stop at one agency. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The intelligence picture expanded rapidly in February 2026. NSA Georgia intercepted a new series of communications. These weren't IRGC Navy transmissions. They were encrypted messages on a commercial satellite phone registered to an address in Muharraq, Bahrain. The phone was linked to a Telegram account. The Telegram account operated under the handle GulfOps_recruit. It had been active since August 2025. Its primary function appeared to be recruitment. The messages, once decrypted by NSA's Tailored Access Operations Division, revealed a pattern. GulfOps_recruit contacted individuals with specific backgrounds: former U.S. military, maritime experience, security clearance holders, and private military contractor veterans. The pitch was simple: a single transit run through the Gulf of Oman. 48 hours of work, $200,000 cash paid in cryptocurrency upon completion. The messages never specified what cargo the recruited individuals would be accompanying. They described the job as logistics security for a regional defense client. No country was named, no end user was identified. Between August 2025 and February 2026, GulfOps_recruit contacted at least 31 individuals. 22 declined or didn't respond. 6 engaged in extended conversations but ultimately pulled out. 3 accepted. The 3 who accepted were all American citizens. All 3 were former U.S. military. All 3 were living in Bahrain at the time of recruitment, working for a private security company called Trident Aegis Group, based in Manama. The 3 men, Ryan Mercer, age 34, former Navy electronics technician; David Okoro, age 38, former Marine Corps logistics specialist; and James Whitfield, age 31, former Army signals intelligence analyst, disappeared from their employer's roster between February 9th and February 12th, 2026. Trident Aegis Group filed missing persons reports with the U.S. Embassy in Manama on February 15th. The embassy forwarded the reports to the FBI's legal attaché office in the region. At that point, nobody connected 3 missing contractors in Bahrain to a cargo vessel being tracked by ONI in the Gulf of Oman. That connection wouldn't come for another 6 weeks. While the FBI's Leggett office worked the missing persons angle, the Mare Drift team continued tracking the Arden Star. The vessel made an unexpected stop on February 22nd, anchoring in international waters approximately 60 nautical miles south of the Iranian port of Jask. Satellite imagery captured a small vessel, consistent with an Iranian fast attack craft, alongside the Arden Star for approximately 90 minutes. The imagery resolution wasn't sufficient to determine what, if anything, was transferred between the 2 vessels. What the imagery did show was personnel movement. At least 2 individuals transferred from the smaller craft to the Arden Star. The Ardent Star then resumed its northward course toward the Strait of Hormuz. On March 1, 2026, the Maer Drift team received a critical piece of intelligence from a human source inside the Omani port system. The source reported that the Ardent Star had submitted port entry documentation to Sohar Port Authority, listing its intended destination as Hodeidah, Yemen. Hodeidah was controlled by Houthi forces. The declared cargo on the port documentation, construction materials, and medical supplies. The gap between the ship's two declared cargoes, agricultural equipment when heading to Muscat, construction materials when heading to Hodeidah, was the trigger. ONI requested CENTCOM authorization for a maritime interdiction. CENTCOM granted authorization on March 4, 2026. The operation was designated Iron Current. The operational plan brought together 3 agencies. The Coast Guard provided the cutter Midget, part of the patrol force already deployed to the region under CENTCOM's maritime security mission. CBP deployed a maritime enforcement specialist team from their National Maritime Interdiction Unit, flown from their base in Cape Canaveral to Bahrain on March 6th. NCIS embedded 2 agents with the boarding team for evidence collection and chain of custody protocols. The operation was designed as a law enforcement boarding, not a military seizure. That distinction mattered for prosecution. The Ardent Star transited the Strait of Hormuz on March 19th, heading east toward the Gulf of Oman. It was shadowed by a P-8 Poseidon maritime surveillance aircraft operating out of Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE. The P-8 maintained continuous radar and electro-optical tracking. For 12 days, the Ardent Star moved slowly through the Gulf of Oman, making no port calls. It reduced speed to 4 knots on multiple occasions. It altered course 17 times. It was either waiting for something or trying to determine if it was being followed. On March 31st, the ship made a satellite phone call to a number in Sana'a, Yemen. Duration, 94 seconds. NSA intercepted the call. The content confirmed a scheduled delivery to a location off the Yemeni coast within 72 hours. CENTCOM authorized the interdiction for the next operational window. That window came on April 1st, 2026. At 1:15 a.m. on April 1st, the Midget moved to intercept. At 2:30 a.m., it established radio contact with the Ardent Star and ordered it to stop for inspection under UN Security Council Resolution Authority. The Ardent Star acknowledged the radio call. It did not stop. It increased speed to 14 knots. At 2:47 a.m., the Midget fired a warning burst from its 25mm gun across the Ardent Star's bow. The vessel reduced speed. At 3:12 a.m., it stopped. The boarding commenced at 3:41 a.m. 8 CBP agents, 2 NCIS agents, 4 Coast Guard maritime safety inspectors. The first team secured the main deck and bridge within 7 minutes. The bridge was empty when they arrived. Navigation screens had been powered down. The ship's electronic chart display showed a wiped route history. The captain was found in the communications room directly behind the bridge. He was in the process of removing a hard drive from the ship's communications server when agents entered. 2 laptops were open on the desk. One showed a command prompt with an active file deletion sequence. The captain identified himself as Khalid bin Tariq al-Amri, presenting an Omani passport. He stated the vessel was carrying construction supplies bound for Salalah. Agents detained al-Amri and secured the electronics before the deletion sequence completed. A Coast Guard information systems technician began forensic imaging of all electronic devices on the bridge. The crew was assembled on the main deck. 19 individuals total. 14 presented passports from 5 different countries: Comoros, Pakistan, Indonesia, the Philippines, and India. 2 presented Iranian passports. The remaining 3 presented United States passports: Ryan Mercer, David Okoro, James Whitfield. The 3 missing Trident Aegis contractors. The senior NCIS agent on the boarding team immediately recognized the names from the missing persons bulletins. He separated the 3 Americans from the rest of the crew and initiated preliminary interviews on the Midget. Before we get to what Mercer, Okoro, and Whitfield told investigators, leave a like on this video. The next part of this story goes deeper than anyone expected. The cargo inspection began at 4:30 a.m. The Ardent Star's forward hold contained 6 shipping containers matching the declared manifest: PVC piping, concrete mix, and water filtration membranes. Commercial goods. Legitimate, or at least appearing so. The aft hold was different. 22 containers, all sealed with non-standard locking mechanisms, all marked with shipping codes that didn't correspond to any registered freight forwarding company. CBP agents opened the first container at 4:52 a.m. Inside, packed in molded foam inserts and wrapped in Cosmoline-coated protective sheeting, were 14 guidance units for the Noor anti-ship cruise missile, an Iranian-manufactured weapon based on the Chinese C-802 platform. Each unit was individually sealed in a static-proof bag with Farsi language technical documentation. The second container held 340 naval mine components, detonators, pressure plates, magnetic influence sensors, and shaped charge assemblies. Enough components to assemble approximately 80 bottom-influence mines. Containers 3 through 8 contained drone components, airframes, engines, flight controllers, and payload release mechanisms consistent with Iranian Shahed series unmanned aerial vehicles. The manifest inside container 4 listed 126 complete drone kits. Containers 9 through 14 held communications equipment, encrypted radios, satellite uplink terminals, signal jamming units, and electronic warfare modules. The encryption hardware bore markings consistent with equipment manufactured by the Iranian Electronics Industries, a subsidiary of the Iranian Ministry of Defense. Containers 15 through 22 contained ammunition, propellant charges, and rocket motor components. CBP explosive ordnance disposal technicians were called aboard from the Midget to assess the materials. The EOD team estimated the total cargo value at approximately $138 million based on known black market pricing for comparable Iranian weapon systems. $138 million in a single shipment on a vessel crewed in part by 3 American citizens. At 7:15 a.m. on April 1st, the Ardent Star was placed under U.S. control. A prize crew from the Midget took over navigation. The vessel was directed to a secure anchorage at a U.S. naval facility in the region. The preliminary interviews with the 3 Americans began on the Midget at 6 a.m., conducted by the NCIS agents. Ryan Mercer spoke first. His account was detailed and consistent across multiple interview sessions over the following 48 hours. Mercer stated he was contacted via telegram on January 15, 2026, by a user he knew only as Tariq. The message was in English, professional in tone, and referenced Mercer's military background with specific details about his service record, his rate, his deployments, his specialization in electronic warfare systems. Mercer said the specificity of that first message was what convinced him the offer was legitimate. Someone had done research. Someone had access to information about his career that wasn't publicly available. The offer was framed as a private maritime security contract. 48 hours aboard a commercial vessel transiting from the Gulf of Oman to the Red Sea. The client was described as a regional defense ministry conducting a sanctioned procurement operation. Payment, $200,000 in USDD cryptocurrency, half on embarkation, half on completion. Mercer said he asked about the cargo. He was told it was dual-use defense electronics. He did not ask further. David Okoro's account matched Mercer's in structure. He was contacted on January 18th, also through Telegram, by the same Tariq handle. Okoro stated he was told his role would be to oversee cargo handling and ensure containers were properly secured during transit. He described the pitch as a babysitting job. Okoro said he received the first $100,000 payment in cryptocurrency on February 10th, the day before he left his apartment in Manama. James Whitfield, the former signals intelligence analyst, provided the most operationally useful information. Whitfield stated he was recruited not just as security, but specifically for his technical skills. He was asked to monitor communications equipment aboard the vessel and ensure that encrypted transmissions between the ship and its shore-based contacts remained secure. Whitfield said he operated a communications suite in a compartment below the bridge for the duration of the voyage. He monitored transmissions on frequencies he recognized as military grade. He saw message traffic in Farsi that he could not read. He did not report this to anyone. Whitfield told investigators he realized the operation was not a legitimate defense procurement approximately 1 week into the voyage when he observed crew members conducting inventory checks on containers using documentation marked with IRGC insignia. By that point, he said, he felt he could not leave. All 3 Americans stated they were unaware of the full cargo manifest. All 3 stated they were unaware that the shipment was destined for Houthi-controlled territory. NCIS assessed these claims as partially credible. The men knew enough to know they were involved in something outside legal channels. They chose not to ask questions that would have confirmed it. The captain, the man who identified himself as Khalid bin Tariq al-Amri, was a different matter entirely. Coast Guard cyber forensic specialists recovered the data he attempted to destroy. The ship's navigation logs were restored from a backup partition on the communications server. The route history showed the Arden Star had transited from Chabahar to Jask to a waypoint off the Yemeni coast and back 3 times in the previous 4 months. 3 successful delivery runs before this one was intercepted. 3 shipments of unknown size and composition that reached their destination. The forged Omani passport was identified within 12 hours. Fingerprint analysis matched the captain to a file in the DIA's biometric database. His real name was Commander Reza Mohammadi, a former Iranian naval officer who had served in the IRGC Navy's 1st Naval District, responsible for operations in the Strait of Hormuz region. He was listed as having retired from the IRGC Navy in 2022. Retired, or reassigned to a different kind of mission. Mohammadi refused to answer questions. He requested consular access from the Omani embassy, a request that was denied given the passport was fraudulent. He was transferred to NCIS custody. The electronic evidence recovered from the Arden Star opened the investigation's 2nd phase. The laptops on the bridge contained encrypted files that, once cracked by FBI Cyber Division specialists flown to the region, revealed a network far larger than a single ship. The files contained logistics spreadsheets tracking 9 separate vessels involved in weapons transfers across the same route over a 14-month period beginning in December 2024. The Arden Star was vessel number 7. Vessels 8 and 9 were scheduled for runs in April and May 2026. 9 vessels. 14 months. The Arden Star was not an isolated operation. It was one node in a sustained logistics pipeline. The spreadsheets also contained financial records, payments to crew members, port officials, customs brokers, and what the documents referred to as talent acquisition, the recruitment network that brought in the American contractors. The talent acquisition records identified 3 separate recruitment cells operating in the Persian Gulf region. One was based in Bahrain, run through the GulfOps_recruit Telegram channel that had contacted Mercer, Okoro, and Whitfield. A second operated out of Dubai. A third was based in Kuwait City. Each cell functioned independently. Each targeted a different demographic. The Bahrain cell focused on American and British private military contractors. The Dubai cell recruited merchant mariners from South and Southeast Asia. The Kuwait cell handled document forging, passports, shipping credentials, port authority clearances. The FBI opened a formal investigation on April 3, 2026. Case designation, Phantom Bridge, Joint FBI and CIS, with support from DIA and NSA. The investigation focused on 3 tracks: the weapons pipeline, the recruitment networks, and the financial infrastructure. Track 1, the weapons pipeline, was handed to CENTCOM Intelligence. 2 of the 9 vessels identified in the spreadsheets were still at sea. CENTCOM issued interdiction orders. 1 vessel, a Tanzanian-flagged bulk carrier, was intercepted by the French Navy in the Gulf of Aden on April 5th. It was carrying industrial chemicals and showed no evidence of weapons cargo. Either it had already made its delivery, or the intelligence was outdated. The second vessel, a Liberian-flagged container ship, altered course toward Iranian territorial waters when it detected naval surveillance. It entered Bandar Abbas on April 7th and has not left as of the most recent reporting. Track 2, the recruitment networks, produced results within 72 hours. The FBI's LEGAT offices in Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, and Kuwait City executed simultaneous operations on April 4th. In Bahrain, agents and local security forces raided an apartment in the Jufair district, 3 blocks from a major U.S. naval facility. Inside, they found 4 mobile phones, 2 laptops, a satellite phone matching the device linked to the GulfOps_recruit Telegram channel, and $47,000 in U.S. currency. The apartment's occupant was not present. He was later identified as a dual Bahraini-Iranian national named Hassan Darvishi, age 41. Darvishi had worked as a translator for a U.S. defense contractor in Bahrain between 2019 and 2023. He had a valid base access badge. It had not been deactivated. A translator with base access, recruiting Americans to crew weapons shipments. That was the detail that elevated Phantom Bridge from a weapons seizure to a counterintelligence investigation. In Dubai, agents identified the second recruitment cell operating out of a maritime staffing agency called Gulf Maritime Solutions, located in the Dera district. The agency had been registered since 2020 and maintained legitimate business operations alongside its recruitment function. It had placed over 200 merchant mariners on commercial vessels in the previous year. At least 14 of those placements were on vessels later identified in the Arden Star logistics spreadsheets. The Dubai sales operator, an Indonesian national named Adi Suranto, was detained by UAE authorities at Dubai International Airport on April 4th while attempting to board a flight to Jakarta. In Kuwait City, the document forging operation was located in a print shop in the Hawali district. Kuwaiti security forces recovered passport blanks from 4 countries, a high-resolution industrial printer, lamination equipment, and digital templates for maritime crew identification documents. The shop's owner had fled 2 days before the raid. His current location is unknown. If you want to understand how federal agencies track these networks, drop a comment below. These cases are more connected than most people realize. Subscribe to see how they unfold. Track 3, or the financial investigation, proved the most complex. The cryptocurrency payments to the American contractors were traced through a series of wallets on the Tron blockchain. The initial funds originated from a mixing service that obscured the source, but FBI blockchain analysts identified a pattern. The mixing service received deposits from 3 exchange accounts registered in Turkey, the UAE, and Hong Kong. The Turkish account was linked to a trading company that imported Iranian petrochemical products in violation of U.S. sanctions. The UAE account was connected to a money exchange in Sharjah with previous OFAC designations. The Hong Kong account traced to a shell company with the same corporate structure as Oceanic Bridge Holdings, the Arden Star's registered owner. The financial trail suggested total expenditures of approximately $12 million across the 9-vessel pipeline. Crew payments, port fees, fuel, bribes, and document forging. The $138 million cargo on the Arden Star alone represented a return on investment that dwarfed the operating costs of the entire network. $12 million in costs, $138 million in a single shipment. And there were at least 3 successful deliveries before this one. The investigation also uncovered how Mercer, Okoro, and Whitfield's personal details were obtained. Whitfield's interview provided the key. He stated that during his first week aboard the Arden Star, the captain, Mohammadi, made a comment suggesting he knew details about security clearance procedures at the U.S. naval facility in Bahrain. That comment led investigators to Darvishi, the absent recruiter. Darvishi's role as a translator had given him access to personnel databases. Not classified systems, but administrative networks containing basic employment records, names, service branches, contract durations, specializations. The base access badge that hadn't been deactivated gave Darvishi continued physical access to the facility. An internal review by Naval Facilities Engineering Systems Command determined that Darvishi's credentials had not been flagged for deactivation because his departure had been processed as a contract completion rather than a termination. A procedural gap. A procedural gap that gave an Iranian-linked recruiter access to a U.S. military installation for 3 years after his employment ended. Mercer, Okoro, and Whitfield were transferred to federal custody in the United States on April 6, 2026. They were arraigned in the Eastern District of Virginia on April 8th on charges including conspiracy to violate the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, conspiracy to provide material support for a designated foreign terrorist organization, and violation of the Arms Export Control Act. Each charge carried a maximum sentence of 20 years. The combined maximum exposure for all 3 men exceeded 60 years. Mercer's attorney filed a motion arguing his client was an unwitting participant, recruited under false pretenses, and unaware of the cargo's true nature. The prosecution's response cited Whitfield's own statements that IRGC insignia was visible on cargo documentation, arguing that all 3 men had constructive knowledge of the operation's illegal nature. Bond was denied for all 3. The judge cited flight risk given the defendant's overseas connections and the severity of the charges. Commander Reza Mohammadi was not transferred to the United States. He remained in military custody in the region. His case was referred to a military commission review. The disposition of his case has not been publicly disclosed. Faisal al-Rashidi, the Bahraini national listed as director of Oceanic Bridge Holdings, was arrested in Manama on April 9th by Bahraini National Security Agency officers acting on an FBI mutual legal assistance request. Al-Rashidi's interrogation reportedly produced information about the remaining 2 vessels in the pipeline and additional logistics nodes in East Africa. Hassan Darvishi, the recruiter, remains at large. His last confirmed location was Bahrain on April 2nd. His phone was recovered in the Jaffer apartment raid, but he had already left the country. Immigration records show he departed Bahrain International Airport on April 2nd on a flight to Tehran. He has not been located since. The Kuwait document forger also remains unidentified. The print shop was operated under a business license registered to a Kuwaiti national, who investigators determined was a straw owner with no knowledge of the forging operation. The actual operator used the print shop under a sublease agreement paid in cash. The Arden Star itself was towed to a secure facility for complete forensic examination. The cargo was catalogued over a 4-day period by a joint CBP and CIS evidence team. Final inventory confirmed 14 Noor missile guidance units, components for approximately 80 naval mines, 126 Shahed series drone kits, 47 encrypted communication systems, 31 electronic warfare modules, and ammunition and propellant stocks weighing a combined 22 metric tons. The vessel's construction was also analyzed. A false bulkhead in the aft hold concealed a compartment that was not part of the ship's original design. Welding analysis indicated the modification was performed within the previous 18 months, consistent with the timeline of the pipeline's operation beginning in December 2024. The Mare Drift intelligence case and the Phantom Bridge criminal investigation were merged on April 10th under a unified task force structure. The task force includes FBI, NCIS, DIA, NSA, CBP, Coast Guard Investigative Service, and CENTCOM J2 Intelligence. The task force's primary objectives as of April 2026 are threefold. First, identify and interdict the remaining vessels in the pipeline. Second, dismantle the recruitment and financial networks supporting the operation. Third, determine whether the 3 successful deliveries prior to the Arden Star's interdiction resulted in weapons reaching Houthi forces, and if so, whether those weapons have been deployed. That third objective is the one with the most operational urgency. 14 Noor missile guidance units were aboard the Arden Star. If the previous 3 shipments carried similar cargoes, dozens of anti-ship missile systems may have already been delivered to forces actively targeting commercial and military vessels in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. U.S. Navy and coalition vessels operating in those waters have faced sustained drone and missile attacks since late 2023. The source of some of those weapon systems has never been publicly attributed with certainty. The Phantom Bridge investigation may provide answers, or it may confirm what intelligence analysts have suspected for years, that the pipeline was always there, and the Arden Star was simply the first one they caught. The Arden Star seizure is the largest Iranian weapons interdiction by tonnage since U.S. naval forces intercepted a dhow carrying missile components in June 2025. It is the first case in which U.S. citizens were found serving as crew on a weapons smuggling vessel in the region. 3 Americans recruited through an encrypted app, a former IRGC commander traveling on a forged passport, a recruitment pipeline that exploited a 3-year-old security gap at a U.S. military installation, a financial network spanning 5 countries, and a blockchain mixing service. The weapons on the Arden Star are in evidence storage. The recruitment network in Bahrain is disrupted. The Dubai cell is shut down, but Hassan Darvishi is in Tehran. The Kuwait forger is gone. 2 vessels in the pipeline were never located, and 3 previous shipments reached their destination. The pipeline is broken. The cargo from the runs that succeeded is still out there.